Hey folks, welcome back. Another Paul Massive day, and today we're going to talk about Falkner and Swellow, right? So Falkner and Swellow, a pretty interesting sync pair, right? Because it's both really easy to use and pretty hard to use, and here's why. Because like it is a support, right? First and foremost, it's an offensive support, and what I mean when I say it's easy to use is because the offensive buffs it's pretty straightforward, right? You got Dire Hit Plus, right, in the kit. Dire Hit Plus, you press that thing twice, you get max crit for your team, right? And then you got your train move, which gives you +2 attack, +2 special attack, and then +1 speed. Very, very straightforward. You press these buttons, you get the offensive stat buffs you need. In terms of how it's maybe a bit difficult to use is managing when to use fly, how to use fly, and how to mitigate the damage done to yourself by using fly, right? To fully take all the benefits and not get screwed over by the 2-turn thing that much, right? So we'll talk about that, right? So just a quick overview of the kit over here, right? Good speed, decent defenses. Well, I wouldn't say defense, pretty good defenses, right? And then pretty good HP with absolutely worthless attack stats, right? And then you got Air Slash, which can flinch, 30% chance of flinching. Then you got Fly, 2-turn move, damage are irrelevant, but yeah, when they're flying, the opponent's moves generally will miss. Sync moves still hit, right? So make sure, that's the first thing about Fly, is when you're using it, make sure on the turn the opponent attacks you, they're not syncing, right? They're attacking the Fly, the miss part. Make sure they're not syncing. And also the other tip is, especially in Master Mode, a lot of times the opponents, also the turn before they sync, they will a lot of times use a trainer move, right? So make sure you also don't fly there, because then you're using fly to dodge nothing, right? I mean, you'll come back before the sync comes down, but then again, you're still gonna hit by sync. And then also again, you're not benefiting from anything, because you won't be dodging the damage, and you won't be triggering, since you're not dodging the damage or dodging any moves, you won't be triggering any of these passives, which are Ridicure, 50% chance of healing 20% of your HP when the opponent's attack misses. Fail forward charge 1 move gauge when the attack misses again, opponent's attack misses you. And the last one, buffs your whole team speed +1, the opponent's attack misses you, right? So you've got to make sure you're actually using fly to 1, dodge damage, 2, dodge hits to trigger these passives if you need it, right? And in terms of like some of its downsides, even though it has decent tank stats, I mean, it doesn't really have, you know, defensive buffs, right? Which, I mean, I'd rather take as a tank a unit with mediocre defensive stats, but actually has max or close to max defensive buffs, than a unit that has pretty good defensive stats, but doesn't have any defensive buffs, right? Because obviously the defense multipliers are generally pretty good. Unless you get crit, then, you know, whatever, right? Then you'll have to cry, sadly. So, like, your only real remedy is just trying to like heal from Ridicure and dodging these damages, which is very, very important, right? So that's how to keep yourself alive without potions, without defense buffs, right? So yeah, anyways, moving on, let's talk about the sync grid, right? So first of all, before we get into sync grid, the lucky seal is generally just vigilance, right? If not vigilance, some of the guard moves, because again, you will mostly be tanking with Swellow, because you want to tank with Swellow, right? Because all these passives trigger when you're flying and the opponent misses you, right? And again, the defense stats aren't terrible, right? They're not terrible. So vigilance is fine. Any of the guards, if you can't get vigilance for some reason, it's okay as well. If you're really out of stuff, then like defense crush / fast track, those always are fine-ish, right? Anyways, 1 out of 5, you pick up everything, right? Even though everything is pretty bad. I mean, you do have like Air Slash, Move Gauge, Refresh 4, which is not terrible, but yeah, outside of that, everything else just not very relevant, right? So 2 out of 5. And here's the other thing, at 1 out of 5, you don't get any NPR for fly, so you got to use those 3 flies very carefully. And at 2 out of 5, you do have an NPR for fly, it's NPR 1. So again, if you're not 3 out of 5, you have to make sure every fly counts, right? You can't be wasting flies here and there, because you don't have too many of them. Unfortunately. Alright, I want to pick up Air Slash, Move Gauge, Refresh for when you run out of flies, inevitably. And then NPR for Sora over here. I mean, I guess you could also go from here, but I mean, again, I don't really feel like the fly power-ups matter. I'd rather take the move gauge refresh on Soar, right? Then you can pick up Group Spectacle 9, right? Which gives you a guaranteed accuracy buff for your whole team, which is nice. Some units need it, some units don't, right? Again, also, not just depends on if your unit needs it with low accuracy moves, but also if opponents have any evasion buffs. So there's, I would say, a decent amount of scenarios where this would actually be kind of useful, right? Over here, I want quick here, so you don't get screwed over by any trap, flinch, or confuse. If you don't have any of those from your opponent, then you can also go for speed buffs over here. Plus 20 speed, or you go for the plus 20 HP over here, some stat nodes, or if you really want accuracy buffs for air slash, but then again, you're getting accuracy buffs here anyway, so I don't really care that much for the accuracy buff over here. But yeah, just some, stat nodes if you don't really need quick cure, right? Anyways, moving on to 3 out of 5. Here's where we got a lot more options. First of all, we have air slash aggravation, which does give you flinch, which is pretty important because, again, like we mentioned before, fly is very, very bad because it is a 2-turn move, so it spends 2 turns but only gives you 1 turn of sync move countdown, which delays your whole sync move by a whole round every time you use it, right? Which then decreases your overall team's damage because you're not getting the sync buff, right? A turn earlier, right? So there are ways to mitigate it, right? There definitely are ways to mitigate it that could make it not as bad, right? So one way is through air slash, right? So for example, you use fly, you're up flying around, 2 turns pass, only 1 sync move countdown. What you could do is after that, you could air slash the opponent, get a flinch on it, then they generally change the move or someone else attacks, right? Depending on what stage you're facing. And then that move puts their move order to the bottom of the queue, right? So you get your turn back. So that is one way of mitigating the downsides from fly, right? So that's why I think aggravation is pretty nice. And then what else? Oh, again, NPR on Soar if you need it. If you don't need NPR on Soar, then don't pick it up, right? There's some other stuff. You can pick up the NPR on Fly, both these NPRs. Or if you need group gloat, when you're group gloating, you definitely don't really need the NPR on Soar, right? Then you could do some other stuff. Pick these up. Although, again, this is just much faster, much, I guess. It's not as controllable, but, like, if you get it, you're for sure getting the stats that you want because you're getting both +2 at the same time, right? It's more reliable in terms of the stats that you're getting. Not that it's reliable RNG-wise, 30% only, right? So you could do that, or you could do this, which means you don't need this, right? This also means that you can't pick up the Group Spectacle, either Group Spectacle or NPR over here, right? It really depends on you, what you need, right? As for some other options, you can still pick up the speed. Oh, never mind, you can't pick up the speed. Oh, no. If you don't need this, right? Quick cure if you need quick cure, right? Getting hit by traps or flinches, confusions. Confusion's not that big of a deal, though. Although, if you're fighting scripted stages, right? For example, Entei's Fire Spin, which comes at, the 3rd attack? Right? The first one, at least. You could time that so you, fly so you don't get hit by it, right? But if you can't time it, if it's not scripted, then maybe quick cure if you need that. Quick tempo. Here's the thing with quick tempo. It doesn't last super long, right? I mean, it lasts for a decent amount of time, but not super long. So it's only really useful if you're using it with units that have heavy gauge use in the first 2 turns. For example, like Sogaleo trainer move, right? Uses up quite a few gauges. Alexam with Reflect, Lyra with Light Screen, stuff like that, right? Setup moves that require these amount of gauges, then maybe pick a quick tempo. But outside of that, again, just really depends on what you need over here, right? As for like a 6-star EX sync, grid, I'm not a huge fan, honestly. You could pick these up, you could do this, but then like, I don't know, really? It just doesn't seem that good. Right? Like, just sync with someone else. Just sync with someone else, man. Anyways, in terms of team comps, again, it's a support, so there really isn't any specific team comps. Again, just remember what this thing can buff, right? Buff crit, buff special attack, and buff speed eventually, right? Slowly, steadily. It doesn't buff that much or that fast, but it can. Just any unit that needs that. Alright, just any unit that needs that. There really isn't any specific unit, right? Just units that could generally need that. It could be mixed strikers, right? Having both a physical special sing and then an opposite regular move, right? Or it could just be a, you know, regular fully physical, fully special, you know, unit. I mean, still gives you the max crit, right? That needs the crit. Because overall, if you don't need the crit, then it's not very necessary, right? What else? Units that could benefit from the flinch a bit, I guess. Something like maybe like a blue with Harry 5, you could do that. Or Evil Tall, or Ice Steven, I guess, maybe. But yeah, it just really just depends on mostly what opponents you're fighting and what units you want to support it with, right? So there isn't that much team comp to talk about, so... Anyways, that's me with this one. I hope you all enjoy. Let me guys think in the comments down below. Like this video, subscribe to our channel for some more Pokemon Masters. I'll see you guys in the next one.